Whoa, hang 10, bro. You just caught me in my digital surf. What's up, dude? How can this cyber dude assist you today?
Tell me about the middle school makerspace.
The Middle School Makerspace at the Singapore American School is a dynamic and innovative hub nestled on the collaborative side of the school's library. This unique location is designed to spark curiosity and creativity, welcoming all students who are eager to explore and create. The Makerspace is led by Mr. Coleman and supported by Miss Dina, both of whom are dedicated to guiding students through their middle school journey. They play a crucial role in helping students harness the full potential of the space, providing expertise and encouragement as students work on a variety of projects.
Hello and good morning from my makerspace in the middle school at the Singapore American School. Recently, I've been engaged in a project that I think is pretty multidisciplinary and pretty interesting regarding the tools that are available to us today. The artificial intelligence wave certainly has hit the regular consumosphere, and in that way there's a bunch of tools that are available to the common programmer that just 5 years ago weren't available. And I'm certainly learning more every day about how to integrate not only API functions into my Python programming, because I am personally myself new to programming Python. I've certainly done like a bunch of vintage programming, as we've seen, but I'm currently engaged in a university program where the whole modern realm is becoming I'm becoming very aware of it, rather. This build happened over the course of a month, knowing that the analog controlled eyes were available to me, and then the mouth. So I put them on a couple pieces of wood, and then I was able to take the 3 signals out from the eyeballs that are important to control, which is x-axis movement, y-axis movement, and blink. And I put them on an Arduino and basically gave it kind of a random look around the room code with a random blink. Hello, computer. Acknowledge.
Good day, I'm Sir Barnaby Brainiac, at your service here at the Singapore American School. It's my pleasure to assist you on your journey towards knowledge. How may I help you today?
Tell me about apple pie.
Apple pie. A delightful treat indeed, steeped in culinary tradition. Often associated with American culture, apple pie consists of a pastry crust filled with sweet, spiced apples. It's commonly enjoyed with a scoop of vanilla ice cream or a dollop of whipped cream.
And then I was able to spend most of my time leveraging the ChatGPT aspect of it by trying to get a microphone to pick up a voice, turn it from speech, make it to text, and then send that text as a prompt to ChatGPT, receive that text. That text is then turned from text to speech via many models I tried, and we'll talk about that, but ultimately I landed on OpenAI's own text-to-speech engine, which has 5 voices and was recently in the news for stealing Scarlett Johansson's voice, so maybe one less voice, but nonetheless, I have been using the male voice Onyx, or Fable, which is kind of like a gender-neutral sounding voice with a bit of a British accent. Whatever the case, I played with a lot of the thematics of this game, of this robot, so that it would be more entertaining. I wrote in the original ChatGPT prompt that, you are expertly servile, and I want you to act like a British butler. And when you realize you're in a middle school, so keep your responses appropriate, and make sure that keeping all these things in mind while it was continuing to respond. One thing I learned that was very important is that if I wanted it to be a meaningful interaction with the human being, context is very important for it to hold on to. So in the beginning, it was just querying and responding, and it had no real memory of what we were talking about, even in the previous question. So that was one of the biggest breakthroughs in terms of understanding how to make it feel more realistic in speaking with something that feels a little bit more human. Is context awareness is key. So it is coded. First I started with, it can hold on to five context sentences, or prompts rather, but now it's capable of holding on to 20 prompts, which is effectively 10 exchanges. So I could ask it a question like, when was Frank Sinatra born? It would reply, and then I could say, what was his first hit? Which would require contextual predicated knowledge of who is his, and his is Frank Sinatra, and ultimately it knows that now and continues on with this building conversation. Now there's a way to talk it out of context. Like I said, it's only good for 10 exchanges. But on the whole, the way that people are talking with it, it doesn't need to hold on to that first one, because it effectively references that knowledge in the second one. And you kind of can keep this running context if you don't bounce around subjects too much, which is possible and fun, because it's fun to mess around with, you know, the ChatGPT engine. This AI robot leverages a lot of the tools I have in the makerspace. We've got the 3D printer, we've got the laser cutter, and then generally hand building tools that any good makerspace would have. You know, your screws, your saws, your hammers and nails and all that. And so I've constructed this AI robot that you've seen at the beginning of this video. I'll give the same caveat OpenAI does. You always need to check and make sure the responses that it gives is true with real research that humans do, but ultimately it does a pretty good job, especially since I'm leveraging the newest model, ChatGPT 4o, which has, you know, I've been developing this since 4 was out, and I paid for 4. And I've been a paying customer, but during the middle of my development, 4.0 came out, and I was easily able to change a couple lines in my script and start accessing that model more. And it's true that the speed at which it replies has certainly increased. So one thing I find fascinating about this project is that I actually use ChatGPT extensively to help me build it. I was not so privy to the lexicon and syntax of Python, being new to it as a language. And despite having experience in other programming languages, certainly vintage ones, it was really instrumental to help me understand the way that Python functions, in functions, literally. But I had never used Python this extensively before. I'd taken a class in university prior to my experience with this. I had a general idea of how things are supposed to go with imports and defining functions and such like that. But specific syntax was certainly aided and abetted by ChatGPT itself. And it's true that, you know, the little disclaimer is absolutely true. You can't rely on it fully to write your whole code for you, but if you know how to elegantly and intelligently copy paste or edit a little snippet of code that it offers you, you can get a lot farther in a smaller amount of time than I think was conventional merely 4 years ago. I think it's very democratizing. I am not particularly educated in coding or AI or tech, but I am, you know, just a dude with a little bit of intellect and a lot of gumption, and together I was able to leverage this tool in order to create this AI robot. Around back, you'll see the brains of the operation, where there is a significant amount of things going on, because it's like breadboard part 2. It's more stable than the previous breadboard, but wires still kind of go everywhere. There is an Arduino which runs the eyes specifically. There is an Arduino which runs the mouth specifically. And then there's an Arduino which runs the Cylon effect, which is the back and forth LED lights on the front. I'm updating that with a serial interface, so it was kind of blocking the operations on the other Arduinos if I were to integrate it and have one less Arduino. Even if I used non-blocking code, it was just too much for the other Arduinos that are running complex things around the robot, so I put it on its own. And it I'm going to say is kind of an impressive concatenation of skills to occur in a month. I mean, if I can do this in a month, it's crazy to think what an enterprise level entity could do with its resources, meshed with a couple people, you know, leveraging ChatGPT or any other internal AI model that it's using. Like Microsoft has bought OpenAI, but certainly Google has its own infrastructure of AI, and et cetera, et cetera. So when this was all first on the breadboard, as it were, and the wires were everywhere about it, I was trying to develop it on a Raspberry Pi 3B. And I also was connected to Wi-Fi, and in this setup was a lot of latency. So I tried over time to enhance the speed at which the exchanges occurred. I thought that it was just the internet, but then I hooked the Raspberry Pi to an Ethernet cable, and that also was not enough. And then I actually queried ChatGPT a lot, like what of these processes is processor intensive, and could a Raspberry Pi 3B like just not be enough to push this down the road? And on the whole, the 3B stood up well enough. Then I got a 5, Raspberry Pi 5 with 8 gigs of RAM, and that did better still. But I learned that it was best to start developing on a Mac, especially after I queried ChatGPT enough to understand what the M1 was built for, which the M1 Mac, which I happen to have a laptop that's an M1 Mac, was specifically designed for neural network tasks or neural processing tasks. Now it does it on hardware. It's designed for you to create your own neural network where you can start teaching it something, and the unified memory allows a significant lowered amount of latency in this process. But I'm not using my own model. I'm using other people's models, and I'm polling the web in order to receive the results of what their models send. So it doesn't really matter that I'm using an M1 Mac, but in using the M1 Mac, there has been a significant amount of lowered latency, and it's just a cleaner environment to develop on because I've got Microsoft's Xcode editor, and then that's really clean and nice to develop in. And then just in general, having all the tools and privileges and cleanliness of a MacBook has been really nice. I've been able to pare it down from 7 to 10 wires going into the thing to literally just an Ethernet cable and a power cable. And that's been really nice. I'm going to put the code in a GitHub so that you can review what I've got so far if you're that kind of person who would like to see the way I'm leveraging certain functions in order to make the thing work, or you can see behind the scenes really. It kind of feels like magic, but it's not if you review the code. And in that way, I have been through 55 iterations of the code to reach the one that is currently functioning with the machine. I went through all sorts of text-to-speech APIs because they're quite interesting right now in the development of them. Some of them have, like what I'm doing right now, they can do uhs and ums and ahs if they're pretending like they're thinking. Like if you put an ellipsis in the Deepgram API, for example, then it will create uhs and ums, and they sound very naturalistic, and I thought that was interesting. And even in ChatGPT's consumer-facing model, their voice that they're using does that, but the one that I landed on is OpenAI's text-to-speech model that's currently publicly available via API, and it doesn't really do that so much. It definitely has like intonation, right? Like if there's an exclamation point, it goes, whoa, or if it's like a period, it's whoa, So it knows a lot of the intonation of human English speech, and the American accent definitely is what I've got it set for. So I landed on that one because it felt, it was quick as well, because I'm just doing 2 OpenAI API calls successively, as opposed to, I think it was at one point maybe 4 AI API calls to various services. Whatever the case, one of the main API calls that is important to have is I'm using Google's Vision cloud service in order to acknowledge, first of all, when a human is present, but also I've got object detection functioning to where I can show an object and it creates a green bounding box around that for me. This is mostly just for me to see feedback of what the machine is showing, but a green bounding box suggests an object and a blue bounding box suggests a human. Now what am I holding?
I see hammer. Is there anything else I can help you with?
Now what am I holding?
I see jug. Is there anything else I can help you with?
And then with that are certain threshold levels that I can set that, like, if I can assume 70% of the frame, then I am asking the machine to turn on. But if I'm consuming perhaps only 30% of the frame, then I don't turn on. And these are the ways to leverage settings in order to make the machine more realistic, because perhaps it's a busy background and I'm back here and there are people, but not until a human consumes, you know, this much of the frame. I can't really see how much I'm filling up in the frame, but ultimately, if that were 70%, then the machine would turn on and acknowledge the human. Equally, if I'm holding an object back here, it won't see it, but if I'm holding an object here, what am I holding? Then it would ultimately be able to tell us what I'm holding. And that's using Google's Vision API, AI that acknowledges objects and humans. And then I'm also using Google as a speech to text engine. So it's definitely constantly polling the web. It's a bunch of existing AI services, which leads me to certainly a point that might come up, which is privacy. And I'm kind of just like forgetting all that right now. It's true that those are concerns. I ultimately want to have object detection and face detection local on the M1 hardware, which is possible, and I'm probably going to do. But right now during development, it's just my face, and I'm giving my face up to the system in order to develop this machine. When it comes to kids being in front of the machine, I certainly will consider this more robustly, because first of all, I feel it's my responsibility to do so. And second of all, just because I get the willies if I don't. So that's the privacy concern aspect. I'm a sacrificial entity to AI in order to create this cool robot. But you know, I don't mind. It's gonna be fine. And ultimately, we're all doing it all the time anyways. Every ATM machine, every traffic light, you're part of the matrix. Get over it. There's nothing really we can do. I'm all for protest. I'm all for lessening the influence of those things in our life without us knowing, but it's pretty heavy, man. So we're not gonna go there right now. But anyways, that's how I feel about the privacy aspect. It's just me up for grabs. So yes, I've written my identity away and my voice as well. And also a pair of scissors. But anyways, that's the summary of the machine so far. This machine certainly has a long way to go. I call it a prototype. It's certainly functional at this stage. I've put it in a box. A lot of people have referenced Mr. Big when they see it, which is a movie I honestly never saw. I missed a lot of those 80s classics, or was it early 90s? See, I don't even know. Whatever the case, Tom Hanks is great. It is a cool box. I was thinking of maybe theming it out to be like a fortune teller wizard before I saw that movie, or before I heard of that movie rather. So that's a way we could go. Currently, it's just a more generic style AI exchange. I did code it with a prompt to suggest that it have a dude-like response pattern. So it says, "Whoa, dude, what's up?" You know, and it even replies, even if I ask about Oppenheimer's nuclear bomb, it's like, "Pretty heavy stuff, man," which is funny. And that's what I want it for too. It's in a middle school, so we got to keep it funny, got to keep it light, got to keep it appropriate. In an earlier iteration of the code, I had a function that made sure it did not allow through queries that I specifically wrote as keywords that middle schoolers likely would suggest, because that's just the age that they are. But I think we're just going to rely on ChatGPT's inherent safety protocols in order to waylay that kind of behavior. Also, I've learned I can make a custom GPT inside of ChatGPT's interface, and if I want to specify that it is a middle school and it must keep its responses factual and on brand for a middle school, then I can totally do that. So that's probably the route I'm going to take, and I can literally API call my own custom GPT model. So it's just amazing, really, all these tools. I'm really inspired every day I work with this machine. I keep thinking of new ways to enhance the human interaction. I keep thinking of new ways to enhance the hardware interaction. You'll see that I've leveraged a lot of the tools in the makerspace to make it kind of funny in terms of its thinking. There's a Nixie tube that I call the neural cortex, and during the thinking process, it's constantly changing. There's a 16:2 LCD screen that puts out messages, and then there's a voltmeter that's receiving random voltages from a homemade ladder DAC that I made in order to look like it's like processing and doing something fun. Also, I recently added LEDs that have various coded, they're coded to various actions that the machine does. And I even made a physical bell that operates on a relay solenoid, so that when a result is achieved, a little ding happens. And that about sums it up so far. Summer break is about to happen. I'm going to be away from the machine for 2 months, and that gives me plenty of time to dream. And when I get back, I'm going to certainly hit it hard. I'm very excited to continue this journey. You'll see that there's a hand beside the machine, and that's something that I want to address next year. I'd love if I could get a motor inside the box beneath the hand, and upon wake, it waves. And then maybe I can't decide if I want each individual finger to be accessible or just like a nice generic wave, because it adds complexity. But nonetheless, I hope you've enjoyed me talking about this build. It's a very unique build. It's something that I only ever thought of as a dream as a kid, like what if we had AI helper robots. I remember I watched a movie when I was a kid around 2001 or 2. I think the movie came out with Guy Pearce, and it's called The Time Machine. And that's a classic. It's a remake of a movie of a book. But, I watched it again as an adult, and it's really kind of a meh movie, but as a kid, my mind was blown. But there's a particular scene in it where he is in like New York City in the future, and there's a public library, and there's this holographic AI interface that, I remember him going around it and trying to see if it was real, and it was like a glass plate. But I just thought when I was a kid that would be the dream, to live in that kind of future where like that's how we interface with our technology, and if that could be real. So although this is a very tangible and non-holographic machine, it is doing a lot of what was portended in that movie. So ultimately, I am pleased to present to you my AI robot for the Singapore American School Middle School, and we are well on our way to developing something really cool. So thanks for watching. I appreciate you if you enjoy my channel. Certainly dance all over the place with various kinds of builds, whether it's vintage technology or contemporary technology, but suffice it to say we are interested in things. So thanks for watching, and I hope to update you soon about my robot. Thank you.
Hey there, dude. I see you've entered my digital domain. What's up? Looking for some gnarly advice or got a question I can totally help with? Let me know, and let's ride this wave together.
Tell me a short story in the style of Edgar Allan Poe.
Beneath the eerie glow of a waning moon, the ancient mansion stood in decrepit silence, its grandeur marred by the relentless passage of time. Ivy crept like sinister fingers across crumbling facades, and shattered windows yawned, revealing the abyss within. The echoes of forgotten laughter, now twisted into ghostly whispers, haunted those forsaken halls. In this forsaken bastion of melancholy, there dwelled a man named Elias. His days were a macabre dance with shadows, his nights bathed in the chilling embrace of dark reveries. He was the last scion of the once noble Thorn family, whose legacy was forever stained by whispered tales of madness and woe. Driven by an insatiable thirst for knowledge, Elias discovered an ancient tome buried within the mansion's labyrinthine cellar, a journal bound in faded leather and inscribed with cryptic symbols. Its pages, yellowed and brittle, recounted the tale of his ancestor, Alistair Thorne, a scholar obsessed with the supernatural. As Elias delved deeper into the journal, he uncovered Alistair's descent into madness. The cursed scholar had sought to unravel the mysteries of life and death, consorting with phantoms to the afterlife, but also bound their souls in eternal torment, forever entwined with the spirits of the restless dead. Horrified, Elias attempted to reverse the ritual, but it was too late. The mansion shuddered, its very foundation groaning under the weight of the spectral unrest. The walls dripped with an inky darkness, and the air choked with bitter despair. Elias's screams echoed through the empty mansion as the reach of the curse consumed him, body and soul. To this day, the Thorne Mansion stands undisturbed, an enigmatic relic of a bygone era. Locals tell tales of flickering lights and ghastly wails echoing through the night, a spectral symphony that serves as a chilling reminder of the Thorne family's dark legacy